Welcome everyone to our webinar, which is about Abby, our FlexiCapture software development kit, which is a new delivery option of FlexiCapture. My name's Tony Cannell. I'm the manager of customer enablement here in North America for Abby, customer enablement or sales engineering. Helping me today is Larissa Latotska, and she's one of our customer success managers from our customer success team. So one of the things, if you have questions, we'll try to get to them at the end, but on the right panel of the WebEx is a place to type in questions. We'll cover those at the end. I'll jump right into the agenda. And let me do that. So what we're going to cover today is FlexiCapture SDK, where it fits in the FlexiCapture product line, FlexiCapture SDK versus FlexiCapture Engine SDK, and that's an important designation. And we'll talk about FlexiCapture SDK features and use cases. We'll go into migrating from FlexiCapture Engine. That's going to be important as well. And at the end, we'll cover FlexiCapture SDK licensing. So this next slide will just give you some background on Abby and where we fit in the intelligent document processing world. You can see the peak matrix by the Everest Group. You can see we're positioned as a leader. We're very high on the vision and capability as well as market impact. This is very timely. We're actually going through this evaluation again for 2020, and I'm helping with that. So hopefully we're right there at the leader again, which I expect we will be. So talking about the FlexiCapture product line itself, FlexiCapture, for those of you who are not familiar with it or familiar, our FlexiCapture product line is what we're doing extraction, we're doing field extraction, adding intelligence to content, we're doing that complex document data extraction. So the product line, you can see what we're targeting, enterprise to mid-size, software integrators, independent software vendors. We have two swim lanes there. We have an on-premise swim lane here at the top and a cloud swim lane at the bottom. And you can see the on-premise. And when we say on-premise, we're talking about our FlexiCapture offerings where you install it on on-premise hardware, virtual machines, private cloud, public cloud. That's the on-prem. Our cloud options down on the second level. That's where we're hosting everything, and we do everything with Microsoft Azure. You can see we have FlexiCapture, FlexiCapture for invoices. That's our distributed platform. We have FlexiCapture Engine. That's the product. You can see, we'll talk about that. You can see there's an end of sales status on that right now. Today, we're talking about FlexiCapture SDK. This is the new option for FlexiCapture. It's for the more complex data capture. It's for capturing data from documents of high complexity. The cloud offering, similar, FlexiCapture Cloud, for FlexiCapture Cloud, FlexiCapture Invoices Cloud, that's our distributed platform, but in the cloud. And then you can see we also have an offering that's available as a RESTful API. Again, both of these are deployed in Azure, and you can choose your location for where that's hosted. So again, the distinction, we cover the distinction here. FlexiCapture Engine was extending the functionality of our other SDK, Fine Reader Engine. And in that case, it was geared more towards a simple data capture, fixed form, single, less complex semi-structured documents. FlexiCapture SDK is opening up all the functionalities you see with our FlexiCapture offerings. So those complex documents and repeating groups, etc. What we're going to talk about next is getting into the differences between FlexiCapture SDK and the prior product, FlexiCapture Engine SDK. And this is kind of, I just covered this a little bit, but you can see with FlexiCapture Engine 12 on the left, it was, the fixed forms, you already were using Fine Reader Engine, for instance, and you wanted to add some simple data capture as opposed to more of the full page capture. The examples were, census forms, simple government forms. FlexiCapture SDK on the right is recommended for complicated capture challenges. It supports the latest features of FlexiCapture and allows you to implement the real flow of complex business process like invoices, mortgages, insurance claims, and tax and government forms. Here's a feature comparison of FlexiCapture SDK with FlexiCapture Engine. You can see in this column, we have FlexiCapture Engine here, and these are the check marks of what's available. You can see it's pretty, the differences are, there are quite a few. You can see with FlexiCapture Engine, if you wanted to do image enhancement, you did that with FineReader Engine 12. You would use FineReader Engine with it, or you could do manual enhancements. A lot of other things weren't there. The big things, the big key features of FlexiCapture SDK when this was released was, as you can see, the image enhancement. You no longer need that FineReader Engine 12. You can use the image processing, image enhancement profiles that are available. Advanced classification, we'll talk more about that. We'll have some more slides about that. Extraction, where you can have learning by feedback. So post recognition, if you want to feed some data back from a verification and make that part of the learning, you can do that now. The other big one is, and this has been something that was asked for a long time. I've been with Abby just over 3.5 years now, and it was always something that was asked with FlexiCapture Engine. Can you please give us the invoice capabilities that we see in FlexiCapture for invoices with FlexiCapture Engine? With FlexiCapture SDK, that is now available to you. And in a little bit, Larissa's going to show you some of that invoice processing with the SDK. The other last thing I'll point out is for the FlexiCapture Engine 12, you didn't really have the project anymore, the FlexiCapture project that you're used to in regular FlexiCapture, the distributed. The project's back. You have your layout still, you have your doc defs, but now the project is back as well. So I alluded to this before. FlexiCapture Engine end of sales. So that we're there now. That happened in October 2019. And there we go. And you can see the timelines here. So we're for the obvious end of sales, so no new sales for the new customers. Mostly, the only thing you can get is you can get some more volume if you're an existing customer. We're going to do only bug fix updates, so no new features, SMUA payments. One of the other things I'll notice this last bullet. If you want to upgrade from FlexiCapture Engine to FlexiCapture SDK, it is a paid upgrade, but we're offering a discount for the first year. In the timeline, so a year from right now, end of extensions or sales, so we're not going to be selling the additional volumes. You still have the SMUA payment. In October 2024, that's going to be there'll be no more support or maintenance upgrades. So something to keep in mind, but you have the availability to upgrade from FlexiCapture, and we'll talk more about that. Some of this FlexiCapture Engine, upgrading FlexiCapture Engine, we'll talk about that more in some upcoming slides. So let's just touch on some features and use cases around FlexiCapture SDK. Some of the straightforward things, some things that are new, but also always been there. You have the basic API set up. We talked about advanced classification, the invoice processing, the thing that a lot of people have been requesting is now available. Learning by feedback, closing that feedback loop, improving your extraction of documents, especially when there's variations. The developers package. With FlexiCapture Engine, we used to give you a standalone version of FlexiCapture. We pretty much are doing the same thing, but however, it's called the developers package now. And with all our SDKs, FineReader Engine SDK, FlexiCapture SDK, we have a code samples library. It's extensive. When you install the product, right off the start menu, we're going to give you a nice web page where you can click and it presents you with options like what are you coding in, what are you trying to do, what task you attempting, what in different languages and with links right to the source code, and you can run everything right there. It's that along with our extensive developers help and the guided tour section of the developers help is something I encourage everyone to do when starting out with one of our SDKs. So talking about the basic API setup, this is talking about what you can do. How do we get how do we get the processing moving? So you can do it from scratch without using any visual tools from a third-party system. This is something that ISVs could use for developing document management systems to modify the metadata that needs to be extracted available for each document. Or you can do for building your own tool for setting up multiple FlexiCapture projects. Business process outsourcers having many FlexiCapture projects, you want to tune specific field settings automatically. So the API is the things you can do with the API or what's available. You can create the FlexiCapture project in the batch types of the API. You can create document definitions and set up the fields. You can process and train the systems. We talked about advanced classification. Something I've mentioned, if you've attended any of our Content IQ or ATS summits, one of the things we'll state is classification. It's one of the most important things, right? You need to, if you don't know what the document is, you're not going to know what action to take on that, and that's kind of covered in some of these squares right here. But advanced classification, you can use it for assembling the documents. What is the doc type? What I just alluded to. What is this doc? Detect document variations. So the assemble boundaries of documents in mortgage act. You get a big stack of documents for mortgage, you can find those document boundaries. The document types. What is this and what destination? You have a use case. Where should this go? Where should this document be directed to? Detect for variations. Detect a vendor on a bank statement document to apply a correct definition. So you have variations of your layout doc def, and you may want to know which one to apply. Advanced classification is going to help that. So we have what's the API? How does the API help? You can provide sample documents for the classes, train the classifier. You can use the GUI in the developers package or the API, so you have one or the other. You can publish the classifier to production and classify the documents. You can use users' feedback to improve the classifier as well. A case study, kind of going with what we just discussed, might be building an application to extract data from tax forms. You need to detect which documents you need to be that need to be processed based from what was uploaded by the user. So the company, you can use our products to get that solution built out. Invoice processing, been emphasizing this. Pretty straightforward, and again, Larissa's going to show some of that. The first step, you can hook in a data set, vendors and business unit data sets. You can populate those with the developers package or the API-based setup feature of the SDK. Step 2, you process the invoice using the API methods. Step 3, the learn by feedback. You may go through the extracted fields and correct things that haven't been recognized correctly. Correct the region for the field. So where did it find this field? And what for this vendor, they sent you a new variation. It didn't find a field. You can correct that. Then you can take that information. You can use that for field extraction training. It's going to improve the quality of the invoice processing. It's something that conceivably can get better the more your customer uses the solution. So the case study going with what we just described. So in this case, the ISV built out the solutions and users our already built invoice process technology to capture the data. So the obvious, build a product to automate processing of invoices and purchase orders. You need an out-of-the-box technology to substitute with your solution. You can do that integration. You can have it with integration to customize all the customer-facing or end-user elements of your system with the custom user experience. So kind of going what we just described with the invoice processing, I'm going to jump into our video, and Larissa is going to describe what is happening in this video. And let me get to that. And if Larissa, you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and hit play.
Hello. Let's take a look at how we can process invoices using FlexiCapture SDK. For this, we prepared invoice processing solution, where we will look at the basic steps, how to call FlexiCapture API to get our invoice processed. So let's take a look. First of all, on the first step, we will need to create invoice processing project. FlexiCapture SDK includes a pre-configured project for invoice processing. In our case, we will need to change European Union type for United States, since we will process US invoices. Also, other possible options are Canada and, for example, New Zealand and Australia. So then when we already created our invoice project, we will move to next step. We will create working batch. We will add images. Of course, we should not forget to open working batch before adding images. And then another next step is recognize our invoices, close working batch. As you can see, very straightforward calls. And for the demo purpose, we will not do any export. We will just calculate how many fields we were able to find on each of our invoices using pre-configured invoice processing project with default settings. So now we're building our solution, and then we will run it to see what we get if we do not make any changes, we do not add anything. And on the next step, we will see how to improve these results. Even with default settings, our results are really good. So our first step, as we already seen on the code, is create invoice projects. It will take some time because we need to create a project from the scratch, set all necessary settings and document definitions. As Tony already mentioned, FlexiCapture SDK doesn't work with document definitions directly as we could do that with FlexiCapture Engine before. Now we work with a project. It gives us much more flexibility because we can set a lot of different settings, and it will make our actually developers life much easier. So we created our project, created working batch, added images, and now we recognize our invoices. So then we will see what we can get with this project. As you can see on the first document, we were able to detect or extract 10 fields. On the third and on the second and third documents, we've got only 9 fields. So we unloaded the image and that's it. So invoice processing with default settings is really straightforward. It's nothing difficult, just a few API calls in our code. So on our next step, let's see how we can improve these results. So what we can do, what else we can do. For example, if we use data sets. So for this, we prepared another solution. It's invoice processing with vendor data sets. In this case, we will open already created on the previous step invoice processing project. Then we will get an access to our document definition, but because we will need to modify that. We will take our working batch. We already worked on the previous case. And next, we will fill vendor data. So for this, we will actually vendor data. It can be any file in CVS format, text. Basically, it is a string with different vendor data we want to use to improve our invoice processing. So for this, we prepared two small additional pieces of code. One of them, it's a code one. We will just copy paste that code. As you can see, it is really also very straightforward. What we do, we just create a new record, vendor record. And on next piece of code, code 2, we will add data to this vendor data. Basically, we will read information, we will read a string from the vendor file, and vendor data is in that file is it's a field, comma separated fields with some fields values. We built new solution since we did some changes to our code. We built this solution and we will run it. And again, on the screen, we will see what step FlexiCapture and FlexiCapture SDK is performing right now. So now it's much faster. So because we need only to open invoice project, we do not create anything. We get an access to document definition to add vendor data. For this, we need to check out our document definition, basically to set it into editing mode. Then we make changes to that document definition by adding dataset, vendor dataset. And our last step will be to check in document definition. Basically, what we do on this step, we get back our document definition to working mode. As you can see, we are waiting for this step. So we still make changes to our document definition by reading vendor file and adding all necessary fields. So we added all vendor records, and now we recognize our working batch. And as you remember, on the first step, we've got numbers 10, 10, 9, 9. Now we've got 16, 15, and 15. It means that using a vendor data set, we were able to find 6 additional fields and extract them. So basically what we did on this demo, we recognized our documents with a default invoice project, and then we showed you how you can improve this recognition, data extraction, if you start using, for example, when vendor data record data set, or another way what you can do in addition to use business unit data sets. So as you can see, it's very easy to work with FlexiCapture SDK. So because a lot of work you can do with FlexiCapture product developer package. You will create your project, you can set settings, and if you need to tweak or change some settings, you easily can get an access to those settings through the code, through the API. There is no need to get back to the project setup station, change something in the project. You can do that with one line of code, as we did for to change, for example, to switch from a European Union invoices type to United States invoices. So I think that's it from our demo.
Great, thanks, Larissa. So we'll continue on. And so one of the things we've talked about or have been talking about is learning by feedback. So you can see, again, I touched on a little bit, you're improving the data extraction data extraction accuracy with feedback from the users. So it's, again, something that can be built where it's getting better as you use it. You can see within the SDK area, you're importing, you're doing the extraction, you sent out the export, the data that you've extracted. That goes out. You may have that third-party component for verification. You get that feedback. You can feed it back into your solution, so it's trainable. The extraction is trainable. Now is something we added. That's something that's available in regular FlexiCapture distributed, but now it's available in the SDK as well. I mentioned this as well. When you're using our SDKs with, in this case, FlexiCapture SDK, you receive that developers package. Again, if you're used to our FlexiCapture products, this is now including that FlexiCapture. Well, includes that what you're used to, the FlexiCapture project setup station. The project setup station is where you build out your document definition in the field. Flexi Layout Studio is our tool, our graphical user interface tool for building out layouts. Our layouts technology, a layout, if you don't know what that is a set of decision tree rules to find elements within documents of any complexity. And an element can be everything from the obvious to text labels, and it can also be amounts and paragraphs and separator lines, barcodes. And once you find an element, the decision tree rules, you use that to say, find other elements or the data to be extracted. So that layout technology is available still. Layouts become a document definition. Document definition is part of your project. The project is what is loaded within your solution. Code samples library, I mentioned it already. It's an option right off the start menu after you install the SDK. The samples you would expect, the hello world sample. There's a classification sample code, field extraction training. We just touched on that. That sample code is there for you, and invoices processing training. So some of the things you just saw Larissa do is available in sample code. And there's more than just what's listed here as well. So this next topic, you're migrating, we're using the abbreviations here, FlexiCapture Engine. So migration from our FlexiCapture Engine SDK to FlexiCapture SDK. The distinction being the word engine's not there, but FlexiCapture SDK. You're migrating to it. What's that going to entail? One of the things, you do need a new license. It's a different license, so you do need a new license. You'd work with your sales manager to get that. It's the same logic though. You still have your customer project ID, you have your developer and runtime license. You're gonna have to switch to the project's back, so that means you're gonna have to switch to the project. It does not support working with the FlexiCapture processor, and you're gonna have to take your doc defs previously used in FlexiCapture Engine, you got to get those into FlexiCapture projects. Then you got to update your project you use if required. FlexiCapture 12 can work only with a compatible version of the project. You can use the developer package to create a compatible project, or you can update the project using the API. So that's something most people are used to. You can have an older FlexiCapture project version and you can upgrade it. You can't have something newer than your version of the SDK. It can't go backwards, so you want to just keep that in sync. I'm talking in the context of projects and upgrading. Delivery, what do you get? What the developer gets. You get the FlexiCapture SDK, the distributed, you get the project ID, a developer serial number, and then the developers package. We've been talking about that. So there's going to be the tools for setup. So the project setup station, the Flexi Layout Studio, which I just described. And you're going to get your developers package license number. I mentioned what the project setup station, just to give some background for some people that have not used it. It's the station where projects are created, set up, and debugged. A project specifies document definitions, the batch types, processing options. I gave my description of Flexi Layout Studio, which is the decision tree rules, define elements within documents of any complexity. We have one a larger description that we can say is that it's an application that allows you to create flexi layouts. Flexi layouts are exported and what become your document definition. So another description of a layout is a formalized description of a set of unstructured documents. So that's the big key. I should have mentioned that with layouts. It's for processing your semi-structured, unstructured documents, which enables a data capture application to locate the data fields and extract the information. Abby Flexi Layout Studio allows you to formally describe the unstructured documents and provide the program with a search algorithm, enabling it to find data fields and extract the information from these fields. An important thing to mention about our layout technology, one layout can handle multiple variations of the same document. So if you have a document type that has multiple variations, that layout technology can be created such that it handles all the variations. That's how our invoice processing was developed. It's built off of that layout technology. You're capturing pretty much the same fields, but the data is in all different locations. A layout can handle those variations. License protection types. So there's two types of licensing for FlexiCapture SDK. Software protection. This is the traditional one that people have usually used to. There's an activation file. You get it, and it's tied to the machine, and it's tied to that machine. There's a license activation process. Use our license managed utility to activate the license. It can be done with an internet connection, and we can also send activations files. Something more recent in the last couple of years is online protection. It doesn't need an activation, but it does require a persistent connection to our licensing service. There's no document data being exchanged or customer data. This is strictly about the license. What the online protection license allows you is one of our bigger requests is for to running inside containers, Docker containers, or virtual machines that aren't static. So you can't have the license tied to a MAC address of a static machine. The online protection license gives you that convenience to run with those containerized containers and virtual machines that change and come in, maybe become existent and don't exist. All it is required is that connection to the internet. In the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about that. The online license, more about it, the parameters, similar to the regular licenses, but there's some things specific to it. So a synchronization period for all license types about 5 minutes. So every 5 minutes, it's going to go up. And again, it's just doing something quick. It's not constantly polling. It's looking at you can see on the cloud that was showing there. There's a common serial number. It's synchronizing, and this is page counts it's looking for. The autonomous working period, if it doesn't have that connection. For trial license, it's just 10 minutes. For developer runtime licenses, it's 720 minutes or 12 hours. The connections, there is a connections limitation tied to the license as well. Longer periods for develop. You can see where there's longer periods for the developer runtime licenses, but pretty straightforward otherwise. So this next section, we're going to talk about the difference between FlexiCapture Software Development Kit, and I usually emphasize this with my customers. It is a software development kit. You have to build things. It gives you the API. It gives you the components to build your solution. FlexiCapture, or what we call FlexiCapture Distributed, everything's built out. It's an application. So comparing those, and if we look at the comparison chart here, again, we have our V's for check marks here. This is our FlexiCapture Distributed. This is the product that where everything's built out. So you can see all the things that come with that. So all your imports, etc., and monitoring tools, all that's here. So what of that is available in FlexiCapture SDK? Quite a bit. Some things that are not there, imports of mail, FTP sites, hot folders. That's something you would have to build out. And then the other unstructured text, it's coming. This is going to lean towards our NLP technology, which is available in FlexiCapture Distributed. So that's coming. But you can see everything else that, the key things I've mentioned before: image enhancement, all the operations are there, advanced image and text-based, rule-based training, and auto learning for classification by companies, which is important. And you can see the document assembly as well. Continuing with that, some more. Some other things that aren't here: verification. You have to build your own verification. Workflow, not planned as well. Data export to export destinations, not to databases, not planned. But the others that common ones that we expect: data files, image files, PDFs, can do redaction. That's there for export formats. Destinations go right to files, right to memory. Invoices, all of this is here. Business unit, vendors, fields out of the box. You can see the fields that are available, right, that you'd expect. Vendor, invoice date, invoice number. Those of you that aren't familiar with our FlexiCapture for Invoices product, when I give that demo, sometimes I will get the vendor data set and a PO data set from the customer, take 10 of their invoices, and I can run that. And with little to no training, most of the time right out of the box, it's going to get some of these main fields: the invoice number, the vendor name, probably the line items. It works really well. So some more on licensing, the FlexiCapture SDK licensing in general. The model, you have it's still have the if you have used our SDKs, you're used to this, but there's a developer license. The developer license is tied to your runtime license. So your developer license is for just that, for your developers to build out solutions. It's tied to your runtime license. So a runtime license, it's your production environment, for instance. It's there, it's running when a solution starts up. It's tied to the developer license it was built with. The runtime license knows about that license. So when it starts up, it's like, oh, I recognize that developer license. This solution was built with this unauthorized developer license. It's going to run for my solution. And you can see the options below. There's a subscription model. For the developer license, the runtime license has subscription and total page count options. There is also a royalty report that's available for some use cases. The customer provides provides Abby reports the number of pages processed, kind of like a pay-as-you-go model. That kind of scenario isn't needed if it was an online protection license. You don't need that. We already know that. Invoices can be sold as a runtime license. Volume's the same. For invoices, it's treated a little different. We assume up to 3 pages per document. It kind of looks at it. It's looking at a document level, so it assumes up to 3 pages per document. A couple other notes on subscriptions. If you're using a subscription license and you want to stop using it, you need to notify us. That it's somewhat typical. I believe it's within 60 days. You're going to let us know. Some volume breakdowns. So similar to what we have for FlexiCapture, they're fixed for subscription and total page count models. Custom volumes are available with royalty reports, with a royalty reports model, which I mentioned. So you can see the breakdown from everything from 100,000 to 50 million. And that's something you can discuss with your sales manager. Invoice module can be sold as a runtime. Same as with our FlexiCapture for Invoices, which is on our distributed platform. Can be sold by subscription only, no total page count. All languages. By the way, FlexiCapture in general supports over 200 languages, and that's growing. For invoice module, all languages are supported and included. All languages are included, I should say, except Japanese. Japanese is available as an add-on, and you can see the breakouts. So 5,000 all the way up to 10 million, or 30 million pages per year. So that you can see that it's reflected in the document, assuming document of 3 pages. Trials are the license, so you have a trial license or you want to have a backup or test license. Trial license for our SDK products is standard. It's 10,000 pages and it expires after 60 days. A test backup license that can be sold at 20% of the runtime license price, and you get 20% of the page volume. Royalty reports, ISV only. Available. You got to get that to us 10 days before the end of a quarter. So I mentioned this at the beginning. So special offers for upgrade from FlexiCapture Engine to FlexiCapture SDK. So from FlexiCapture Engine 11 and FlexiCapture Engine 12 to FlexiCapture SDK subscription, free developer license for the first year, 60% discount for runtime license first year. From FC 11-12 subscription or royalty based, free developer license as well, but it's a 50% discount for runtime subscription royalty license for the first year. And there's a note there, the discount is not applied to the invoice add-on. So I went fairly quickly, but it's good because I left some time for questions, and Larissa and I will do our best to answer the questions. And Saurabh, we can start doing that. If then maybe we already have some.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, we've got one question here. What third-party components you are using for result verification?
I can take this question. In FlexiCapture, we have own verification. For FlexiCapture SDK, we do not have verification, and basically our customers do not ask about verification from us, because FlexiCapture SDK is a part of a bigger customer system where they usually already have own verification. So when we demo our functionality, for example, learning by feedback, where we have different document variation, and we need just to correct some field location. So we use FlexiCapture verification, FlexiCapture product verification. So, but what actually you need for this verification? You need some user interface just to see a document and mark up a new location of the field. Basically, you need a field, a pair of field, and its new coordinates. So in our example, when we tested, we just sent by means of JSON file, we sent this data field and its new location using JSON file back to FlexiCapture and run training. So after that, it will pick up a new location, and next time when you, for example, work, you get the same type of documents for processing. The system will be trained to recognize that type of documents. So in many cases, customers use own verification because it is already a part of their application.
Thanks, Larissa. We have a next question here. What are the key differences for an ISV for FlexiCapture Cloud RESTful API versus the SDK?
So I can take that, and Larissa, you can add in with me. The big one being it's hosted. So where it's hosted in Microsoft Azure, it's our cloud platform, and the calls are through REST API. We can provide a link after. All of our help on that is available online. We can provide a link that describes the REST API in pretty good detail. That's available to everyone. The SDK itself, there is information up there. The help for the SDK is available that's all available online as well, but that's going to give you all the API listings, all the differences, are the things available to it. To get at that help, though, you do need a project ID that comes with your trial or when you purchase a license. But we can provide that after this as something Saurabh will send out.